now need to do is you now need to be able to get the data to solve this problem. So therefore, the statistical way of thinking typically says you formulate a problem and then you get the data to solve that problem. The machine learning way of looking at things typically says, here is the data, tell me what that data is telling you. Many of my colleagues and I myself have run into this problem when going for interviews, etc., and so sort of statisticians say that we're not getting jobs out there. And so I go to people who are hiring and saying that, why don't you hire statisticians? And I reach an interesting conclusion to this entire discussion, that sometimes around the way the interviewer who's interviewing the statisticians for a data scientist job asks the question, here is my data, what can you say? And the statistician answers with something like, what do you want to know? And the business guy says, but that's why I want to hire you. And the statistician says, but if you don't tell me what you want to know, how do I know what to tell you? And this goes round and round, right? No one's happy about this entire process. So there's a difference in the way these two communities approach things. My job is not to resolve that. Because in the world that you will face, you'll see a lot more of this kind of thinking than you'll see in this kind of thinking. Because in this world, the data is cheap and the question is expensive. And you're paid for asking the right question. In this world, the question is cheap and the data is expensive. You're paid for collecting the data. So sometimes you will be in a situation where this is going to be important. For example, let's suppose you're trying to understand who's going to buy my product. You're asking the question, let's say that my products aren't selling, and you want to find out why. What will you do? Get what data? So let's say that you're selling, I don't know, what do you want to sell? You want to sell watches, say? So let's suppose people aren't buying watches anymore, which is a reality, correct? So you're a watch company. Who buys watches these days? The entire business model of a watch is disappearing. Do you have watches? Some of you have. Right? He has. Actually, a surprising number of you have. Maybe they do different things these days, right? That seems like a very... That's a fitness device, it's not really a watch at all. So something like this was actually with my daughter at lunch today. So she got something like this. I'm not sure, my wife, who's an entrepreneur, runs her own company, she came back from Delhi, she came back with 2 of these. I don't know where she picked them up. So my daughter, the first thing she did, she took one of this and she took this thing out. Because she thought of the whole wristband as an unnecessary idea. I mean, that didn't occur to her. I mean, that's a separate thing. That's a nice little beautiful red wristband, etc. So a watch is a different thing. But let's say that you're a watch company, nobody's buying your watches. Or fewer people are buying your watches. Now how are you going to solve this problem? Or how are you going to process this information? What do you want to do? What do you want to know?
Check the models testing.
Okay. But remember, I'm asking this question also from an analytical perspective. So when you say that, to check the model and see what is not sold, that assumes the whole data question. So first order, you'll see sales. For whom and when and how? How do you structure your data? How will you arrange the problem?
Let's say